How's everyone today? You all key me when you're ready. Yeah. Looks like we're good. Okay, let's go ahead and start. I want to thank everyone for being with us this morning. June, it's hard to believe, but we're already into June. Today we have a very important announcement to make, but before I make the announcement, as I typically like to do, I want to recognize the people at the California Department of Justice who make these kinds of announcements possible. Not all of them can be here with us, but some are, and I want to make sure I acknowledge those who've worked on so many of these important issues for Californians. I'd like to start off by recognizing Melanie Fontes Rayner, who is here with me. She's a special assistant in this office who works on health matters and is an expert on healthcare matters for this department. I'd like to recognize in their absence Nick Akers, who is the Senior Assistant Attorney General, who has been leading the consumer law section of the Department of Justice for quite some time. Judith Fiorentini, who is the Supervising Deputy Attorney General in the same section, and Michelle Burkhart, Deputy Attorney General, who has done a lot of the work on the case that we're about to discuss today. And as you can see, standing next to me to my right is someone very important, someone very special, probably the most important reason why we're here today. Jordan Basilou is someone who can speak from firsthand experience about the things that are critical for Californians to address. And I'm going to let him tell his story after I say a few words. So I want to thank Jordan in advance for being willing to stand with us today. California has done a lot on any number of issues, but on healthcare, there are a few states that compare to California. We expanded Medicaid when we had that opportunity back in 2010 so that more Californians, several million Californians, were able to actually access decent quality healthcare, including for things like substance abuse disorders, access to medication when necessary for themselves or their family members. On the California, on Covered California, our California Exchange under the Affordable Care Act, we made sure to include prescription drug coverage for Californians who applied for health insurance under the Affordable Care Act, and that they had access to substance abuse treatment and services under their health plans as well. We have one of the finest prescription drug monitoring programs in America. It's called Cures here in California. We have aggressively investigated and prosecuted those who overprescribe and violated our medication laws. Not long ago, it's still pending as a case involving Dr. Satendra Kumar Chopra, who out of Modesto's, his offices in Modesto, was prescribing prescription drugs, including opioid drugs, to Californians throughout the state, not just in Modesto, but throughout the state. And that prosecution continues forward. But even through all of those things, there are still 6 Californians who are dying every day from opioid overdoses and use of substances that could lead to their death. The opioid crisis is devastating our communities throughout the country, and it's killing our loved ones. In 2017, opioids took the lives of more than 70,000 Americans. The truth is the start of this crisis can be traced back to Purdue Pharmaceutical, or Purdue Pharma, and the Sackler family and their pursuit of profits. Purdue and the Sacklers traded the health and well-being of Californians for profit and created an unprecedented national public health crisis in the process. But we will hold them accountable. That's why today I am announcing a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, certain of its affiliates, and former officer and board member Dr. Richard S. Sackler for, as we allege, engaging in unlawful practices in the marketing, sale, and distribution of opioids. Our complaint alleges that Purdue Pharma knew as early as the 1990s that one of their drugs, Oxycontin, was among the most abused opioids in the country. What was their reaction? Well, they doubled the size of their sales force the following years. By 2000, they had already been made aware of specific reports made to this company over the abuse and diversion of Oxycontin in communities across the United States. But their sales representatives continued to falsely promote Oxycontin as a drug that was neither addictive nor subject to withdrawal symptoms. And in 2007, Purdue and a number of its executives pleaded guilty to felony misbranding, admitting to illegally promoting Oxycontin and paying more than $600 million in penalties, fines, and forfeitures. Despite all that, Purdue continued its aggressive, deceptive marketing campaign, raking in billions of dollars in profits as the opioid epidemic continued to claim lives across this great country. This violated California's consumer protection and public nuisance laws. No one's life or health should be for sale. The California Department of Justice will hold Purdue and Dr. Sackler accountable. Any company in California that thinks that these kind of deceptive tactics are the path to profits will learn that they don't pay. It is time to take action. It is time to hold those responsible accountable. And it's one of the reasons why Jordan is with us today, is to talk about his experience. And fortunately, he is here to talk about it. So let me now ask Jordan Basilou to tell us his story. Jordan.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jordan Basilou. I'm here to share my experience with opioids and how they ruined my life and will affect my future. Saying that pain pills with opioids are not addicting is a joke, and a very deadly one. Ignorance like that has killed a lot of people and contributed to the opioid epidemic in our country today. People think, well, it's from a doctor. How bad could it be? People need to know the truth about how dangerous opioids are and what they could be getting themselves into. If I knew I was getting into that, I would have taken them. I was in a car accident when I was around 18, and I had a bulged disc. And my addiction started with pain pills that were prescribed by my doctor. Every time I went to the doctor, I would get a stronger pill. Sometimes I would even cry to get stronger pills. Soon, I was looking for them out on the street, and I spent every dollar I could to get my hands on them. I overdosed and revived by Narcan 4 different times, and every time I got out of the hospital, I went back and used the same day. My road to recovery was a long one and bumpy. I've been to rehab 7 times. The grip that opioids had on me was way too strong. I lost friends and hurt my family because it hurt to see me in that state. I found out that I could get help from Sacramento Native American Health Center. I booked an appointment for a few days later, and when I showed up for the appointment with Dr. Farnafar, I was nervous. Even though my life was horrible and ruined by drugs, I was scared to change. But if I wanted to live, I had to quit. It was that black and white. After talking to my doctor for a while, he educated me on some things and prescribed me a medication to help me stay clean. With the combination of my medication, with the rehab, and a lot of support from family and friends, I've been able to stay clean for 3 years. Even though I have that much time, I'm still cleaning up the mess that opioids got me into. I'm in a lot of debt because of my arrests and DUIs. It's going to be hard to pay off because I have very little work experience, and I have 2 felonies. That makes it even harder to get a job. I live at my parents' house, and I don't have a car, so I'm dependent on them for almost everything. I have not had a meaningful romantic relationship in years. But despite these things, I have hope. Every day my life gets better and better. I still have bad days, but when I do, I remember that I'm lucky to be alive and to make the best out of my new life. There are way too many people who won't ever get that chance, and I'm so happy that I'm not a statistic to opioids, but I came close many times. And it's crazy to think that it all started with just a couple of pills. And this is why that we are doing this here today. This is very important, and we need to save lives. And people need to know the dangers of opioids. Thank you for your time.
I know I've been asked to say a few words in Spanish. Let me say some right now, and then we'll take questions. But I first have to say, when we do press conferences, you see a lot of folks come up, and like me, they'll have prepared notes. Jordan, what I appreciate about your notes is they were all handwritten, and with scribbles and scratches. That was you. That wasn't someone who wrote that for you. That was you. And you can tell from the expressions, that was you. So thank you for expressing yourself, especially the personal parts about your life. That's very important. Estamos aquí hoy porque estamos anunciando que ya es tiempo de que alguien responsable pague el precio por dejar muchos de nuestros seres queridos endrogados, no solo endrogados de deuda, endrogados con drogas, con las medicaciones que matan, en este caso los opioids. Y sabemos en muchos casos de personas que utilizan estas drogas en maneras que causan no solo dolor, pero muerte. Y una de las compañías que tiene que aceptar responsabilidad por lo que ha hecho es una compañía que se llama Purdue Pharma. Y uno de los ejecutivos de esta compañía, el doctor Richard Sackler, tiene que también tomar responsabilidad por lo que ha hecho, por las vidas que ha destruido, por las muertes que hemos visto, porque sabemos que muchos de nuestros seres queridos solo quieren aliviarse, solo quieren poder regresar a la escuela o el trabajo, y a veces toman estos medicamentos para poder regresar a su vida, y desafortunadamente caen en la adicción de estas drogas, y muchos nunca se levantan y terminan muertos. Así que hoy estamos anunciando una demanda en contra de Purdue Pharma y el doctor Richard Sackler por las acciones que tomaron ellos en causar mucho de la epidemia que vemos en este momento con el uso de las drogas que matan. Y es tiempo de decirles que tienen que tomar cuenta de sus acciones. We'll take some questions now at the stage. Yes.
Attorney General, thank you for taking our questions. Is there a number of other states have filed similar lawsuits? I believe it's 45, including California. I was looking for that number, if you have a current number. And then I'm trying to understand if there's anything different in California's lawsuit than what the other states have alleged.
So a number of other states have previously filed. Several are filing today as well. We've been working closely with our state partners and state AG partners throughout the nation. I think all of us can point to certain facts, certain players, defendants, and I believe that what I can tell you without trying to speak for my Attorney General colleagues throughout the country is that we're all trying to make sure that we pursue those who should be held responsible, accountable for this opioid crisis. The facts may differ slightly from state to state, but for the most part, the story is the same, and Jordan has told it. It's the same thing. It starts with the legitimate use of a pain-killing drug, usually, and it escalates. And it escalates because too many people, including both the prescribers, the physicians, and certainly the users, the patients, were never really told what they were about to get themselves into. And the descent is so rapid in so many cases. But pretty much every state now is taking some form of action. We've been working all together for quite some time. Before filing, we've been doing a lot of investigative work in preparations for this lawsuit. And we'll take this to whatever end we need to make sure that we hold those responsible accountable.
So, Oklahoma, I believe it was, settled with Purdue and is pursuing against Johnson & Johnson. Why are you just limiting this to one company and Dr. Sackler?
So this is our initial filing. We will go wherever the evidence takes us. Certainly, we continue to investigate in these ongoing conversations that are taking place nationwide with not just the manufacturers, but also the distributors of these drugs. We continue to have the process moving forward, and we will go wherever the evidence takes us. We will pursue whoever we believe we can charge and file against. And right now, we were prepared here in California to say that we were suing Purdue Pharma, its affiliates, and Dr. Sackler. That doesn't mean that we won't include other defendants. We've just decided that right now we're ready to move and make it very clear that we're going after those who we believe are responsible.
Several other states have already sued. How important is their discovery to your case?
In most cases,
Why not their discovery?
in most cases, we're able to work together. I won't get into the nuts and bolts, but depending on how we are handling these matters, in what are often called multi-state cases, we're able to share information and evidence. Once a state files, circumstances do change some, but clearly we're all digging for the evidence, and to the degree that we're able to, we share the information that we're getting, and where we can't, when it does become public, we make sure we take a look and see if it takes us anywhere as well.
This is not a red state, blue state sort of issue.
This is in every state. This is all hands on deck, and that's why I think you're seeing virtually every state in the nation and the Commonwealth are part of these actions. Yep.
If you could, thanks for that follow-up. In addition to the challenge that Dan mentioned, I wonder if you think that a judge dismissed North Dakota's lawsuit on this issue, and Purdue is pointing to that as evidence that cases like this are meritless. What do you say to that? And does the dismissal of the other lawsuit dim California's chances?
We don't file meritless cases, and California will be dogged. We think we have evidence, and as I keep saying, we're going to hold people accountable, and we're not going to stop. We took a long time to take this action because California, we're a very big state. There are a lot of things you have to consider in a state this big with 40 million people. But when we dive into the deep end of the pool, and so we take this very seriously. Yes.
Two questions. The first one, you said the problem is with the escalation. How does that come back, in your opinion or in your study, to the person who made this pill for those who need it legitimately?
So as I said, we are suing Purdue Pharma because of the way it has handled its operations, its practices, the way it marketed, the way it distributed, the way it handled its affairs. And we believe we'll be able to prove that there's evidence that they knew not only what they were doing was wrong, but that the fact that they were doing it was leading to much of the crisis that we see today. They can't escape responsibility for what their product does. And I don't know what they're going to say, but all I know is that we filed because we have good evidence, strong evidence. We're just going to move forward.
And let me play devil's advocate when we say what this product does. From the cancer patients, or a very good friend of mine whose husband died of that, and she sat to me in tears and she said, they call this an opioid crisis. My husband needs these and they're making it harder to get them. What do I tell them?
There's nothing in this lawsuit that prevents a patient from receiving medication that he or she might need to deal with a condition or illness that person is suffering. There is nothing in this lawsuit that would do that. We have to prove that Purdue Pharma, Dr. Sackler, did things the wrong way, that they violated our laws. This in no way goes after anyone, prescriber, physician, company, patient who does things the right way according to the law.
But it certainly makes it more challenging for that physician, or they question it, if they're going to give out that prescription because of the potential ramifications and this opioid crisis.
I can't go after anybody if they're abiding by the law. The only way I go after you is if you have violated the law. You get no excuse for that. Yes.
President Trump declared a national crisis, a national opioid crisis, a couple of years ago. I'm curious about your perspective on federal efforts to combat the crisis and what the White House is doing, if he's doing enough, and then how might a lawsuit, a statewide lawsuit, help collaborate with a national effort?
We all have to be in this. And again, this is not a red state, blue state, Republican, Democratic crisis. Everyone's got to be in on this. We're going to do everything we can in California. We hope the federal government does everything it can as well. And it's got vastly more tools at its disposal than each individual state does. So we hope they get into the game and do this as well as they can, whether it's the FDA, whether it's the Surgeon General, whether it's the Department of Health Care and Health and Human Services, whoever can get into this, and certainly the president with the bully pulpit to get out there and talk about this. All of those things are helpful. I can't control what the federal government does. I can control what California does through its legal tools. And so we're going to do what we can, and we hope we have good partners throughout the country that will join to do this as well.
Attorney General, we've seen litigation in other states targeting not just manufacturers, but also pharmacies themselves, CVS, Walgreens, that kind of thing. Is that a direction that you're looking at?
Yeah, and I'm going to ask Jordan to maybe comment on this, because it's not just the manufacturer of the drug. It's the pipeline and everything that's part of the process that finally gets to the user, and how the user, you don't hand over a knife to a child. You have to make sure that you are careful in what you do with some of these products. And so no one should think that they are absolved of liability simply because they didn't manufacture the product that they either distributed or dispensed. Again, I have an obligation. I have to prove you violated the law. And so still my burden to prove that you violated the law. But if I've got evidence that you were part of this scheme and this overall practice, you get ready, because we're going to try to make you pay for the price. Jordan, as he said, is trying to put his life back together. This has been very costly to him. And California is going to try to be there to be helpful. That's very costly to us. But we all deserve, as Californians, to know that those who caused this crisis will be part of helping us get out of this crisis. Jordan, let me see if you wish to comment on anything you've heard, or even this about the prescribers.
I'm really happy that there is going to be a crackdown. Like you were saying about your friend with the cancer. I believe that after an evaluation from a doctor, and they have that type of diagnosis, that it shouldn't be a problem for them to get it. But me, like with my back problems, I was able to lie about those all the time and be able to get pills. And then once I got those pills, I would say that, they gave me nausea, so he would prescribe me another one. Then I would say, well, that pills doesn't work, so hopefully you give me a higher dose. And so these are just little ways that people, try to get around it. And there does need to be an answer about it, like all across the board that you're trying to do. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned the public nuisance and consumer protection laws. Can you elaborate, please, on the laws you're alleging this violated?
We'll make sure we get you a copy of the complaint, but we're essentially saying that the way they were marketing, advertising, the way they were describing their product, the way they would pursue expansion of the use of the product, and as a result of all that activity and the fact that this has now become an epidemic, the fact that now this is not a private citizen concern for just Jordan, but it's a public concern because when you have an epidemic of substance abuse, that's more than just the individual or the family who's impacted. It's now a problem, a challenge for the entire community. And it gets to the point where now the public's both resources and attention get diverted to address this in ways that we believe we can prove violate our laws. You have an obligation to be a good neighbor, and if you're out there marketing a product that you know is causing havoc and death, I don't think you can classify yourself as a good neighbor.
So, do you view this as similar to tobacco litigation or the housing crisis litigation? Is this going to be a nationwide thing with a nationwide settlement? Is that what you're envisioning?
My sense is because pretty much every state is involved. It's unfortunate to say, but you have Americans in every state in the nation who are impacted and dying. In many respects, this is similar to what we've seen in these large actions that involve people across the country. And so whether there's a settlement or not, you will see nationwide action. And we will probably see many other defendants named, whether it's our action or other states' actions or some multi-state action or federal action. You'll continue to see this percolate because we keep uncovering more and more, and I don't think there's any doubt. You don't have to worry about seeing this on any street corner in America. It is out there, and so we'll be out there.
Tobacco litigation, states got a big pot of money went into the general fund generally. With the housing litigation, a similar sort of thing. Do you envision getting any redress for folks like Jordan?
Oh, there will be redress. The actions, remember that the state, when it files actions, is limited in what it can do for any individual personally. When we act on behalf of the people of the state. So we'll make sure, for example, that additional treatment services are available to those who were impacted. So that won't be a direct benefit to just one person. It'll be a direct benefit to everybody in California who might suffer from weaning themselves off of these drugs. But there are also lawsuits that have been filed on behalf of individuals. The individual litigants are out there as well. And that's where they will be able to recover individual awards for their particular damage.
Jordan, have you filed a lawsuit?
No, I haven't. But I'm really happy that, if the state is receiving any money that will go into treatment for all of us. And these medications are very expensive. Some people can't pay for them, which is a shame. And so if the money goes back, into resources like that, I'm all about it. I love it.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. One more.
Sorry, the judge in the North Dakota case that was dismissed said that Purdue couldn't control how doctors were prescribing their medication, and Purdue had no control over how patients were receiving it. Just your response to that suggestion.
It's hard to give a response. I wasn't in that court. I didn't hear the evidence. I don't know what the case, how strong a case or not there was there. All I know is that we feel very confident that we are prepared not only to take this action today against Purdue Pharma and Dr. Sackler, but we're going to be aggressive, and we intend to make sure that folks like Jordan, who made the fight and were able to come out of this, are rewarded. And we hope that what we can do is keep other folks from ever having to go through this kind of hell that some of these companies and individuals have put so many Americans through. Yes.
I ask him.
So like Jordan said, there's always going to be a demand which drives people to the streets, which leads people to take fake opioid pills. Is there going to be something in place for that?
Ooh, and Jordan, if I'll let you comment as well if you'd like. I probably need to have a few other folks up here to try to respond to that question, those who actually do the public health work to try to make sure that we're addressing the crisis of a lot of the drugs that we see peddled on the streets. But what I can tell you is that we'll do everything we can to make sure that no company goes out there and markets and distributes a drug in misleading ways and in ways that could lead to their abuse. And we'll do everything we can, and part of that action starts today with this lawsuit to try to address that. But I think the thrust of your question probably requires folks other than the Attorney General to try to give a more comprehensive response. Jordan, I don't know if you wish to say it.
So I believe that the demand for drugs will always be there, but the way how to stop that is to give people the information and resources, if they do get hung up in that, to be able to get clean, because you'll spend all your money trying to get all those pills on the street, and that you have a problem. Now, if there are resources that are readily available for you to use, that will help solve all the problems on the street, because hopefully the demand won't be there anymore, because people will be educated on what opioids do to you and how your life will end up. It's going to happen. And so, it might not be a week or, a month, but it's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. So, yeah, that's my answer for that. Thank you.
Yes.
If I may ask a non-opioid related.
Let me make sure that we're done with opioids, right? Okay, we're about to close. Okay, go right ahead.
Quickly, I'm wondering if the department has considered Assembly Bill 1185, which would allow county to create a sheriff's oversight board. I'm wondering if considered a position on the bill, Assemblyman Kevin McCarty. It's a bill out of direct the controversy regarding Sacramento County Sheriff Scott Jones and him not allowing an inspector general to.
You're catching me off guard. I don't know I think I know the legislation you're talking about. I don't know the status of it, and quite honestly, if it were opioids related, I could probably respond really well. Outside of that, I probably would make a mistake. So why don't we do this? We can follow up if you'd like, to make sure that I don't give you wrong information about that legislation. Okay? I want to thank everyone for coming, and I really want to thank Jordan for being here as well. Thank you. Jordan, do you want your notes?